Hi, hello, welcome back to another Onkruid video, welcome back to another unedited Soulstone Survivors video. 158, 12 levels to go with the Pyromancer, and then we will finally be moving on to the next character. I don't know if I'm gonna keep the series going forever. I just realized that Soulstone doesn't interest the people anymore, sadly. Although, it interests me, and that's of course where the doubts come in. It's mainly just a way for me to kind of structure my own thoughts throughout the day, or the thoughts that happen throughout the day, really give them the room and space to kind of fill up the void that I would normally have in my head at this time of day at nighttime. Most of the time people tell you to have like a sleep routine that already starts before you actually head into bed, that consists of things like relaxing, drinking a hot cup of tea without caffeine of course, reading a book, either way not doing anything active and not doing anything involving screens. And I must say, beautiful advice, very important for people that are actually struggling with sleeping. But for me, I rarely struggle with sleep. And additionally, I think that this actually helps me out. I think that it helps me to kind of really take a moment to restructure everything that I was just cramming into my head throughout the entire day. Because that's definitely what I do sometimes. Life is just moving so quickly, at such a fast pace, at such speeds, that sometimes it feels impossible to do anything else other than just like fill or put everything into your head rather, and then hopefully later in the day you will sometime find the room to actually take into account everything that's happened, to give it a place, give it a space in your head. And this YouTube journey, and then especially or almost solely, almost only uniquely this game gives me this platform beautifully, you know. It really makes it so that I can just relax, take it easy, because there's nothing that you can do, and just calm down, breathe. Finally, I guess we're going a magic missiles build. It's fine, I think it's gonna be effective as hell. I was normally looking for Chaotic Inferno or the bunnies, but we can go for a nice arcane build as well, I guess. I think I'm going to replace the Chaotic Inferno then with the magic missiles, because I do believe that it is a capable skill capable of carrying us throughout the run on its own, is what I meant to say. And maybe on its own is not necessarily the exact right formulation, because well, it's on its own, but in a multitude of ways, because there's many copies of it in our hotbar, in our action bar. But I digress. You probably know what I'm saying. And if not, really weird, man. Let me banish Leviathan, because we are definitely never reducing our movement speed if we don't have to, because we know how important movement speed is. I think I will get Bloodlust instead of the Chaotic Inferno already. And we might have just kind of completed our build. I might replace the Arcane Disc with even more Arcane Missiles, but I think that it's not necessarily such a bad idea to have at least some skill diversity. As you can see now though, once we get the hits in, we are actually being quite effective at diminishing the amount of enemies on screen. Definitely not gonna go for a second Arcane Discs, because Arcane Missiles is the way to go. I do remember one of the people I follow on YouTube that I started following when I was starting to play Soulstone Survivors myself, right when this rune right here, the singular focus rune, got added to the game, and you were able to create these types of builds with multiple copies of the same skill. I know that Arcane Missiles is actually one, or Magic Missiles rather, is probably actually one of the first things that I saw someone try, and they had a whole bunch of success with it. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, the game has of course changed a little bit, and yet again, has it really? The main premise is still absolutely the same. Sure, there have probably been some balance changes, there have been some new skills, some new weapons and stuff, but in essence, I think that a lot of the stuff that worked a whole while ago will probably still work right now. And we are already leveling them up nicely, swimmingly, soundly. Beautiful stuff. It seems to be a successful run so far, but we are still in like the very early parts of the run, of course. All these arcane upgrades are very welcome, because they include all of our skills in their upgrade arsenal, and that's exactly what we will be looking for. Wednesday today feels a little weird, a little strange, a little bit of a weird Wednesday. Normally Wednesday is just like middle of the week, alright, I have my free day on Wednesday, but I know that I am gonna have to go back to work tomorrow, so that's all fine. This time around though, a little bit stranger, because last night I went to a quiz, I went to a trivia night. Normally something for in the weekends, but this time it was on Tuesday. I also had the club going up afterwards, don't you worry about that. And it was a very, very nice experience, but I do feel right now that it has definitely, wow, we just took a whole load of damage, brought me into, and there goes a revive, into a weekend mode. So I'm quite scared to see how well I will be able to immediately start up work tomorrow morning, how well my first conversations will go, or whether I will have to kind of like flip the mental switch again of like, hold on, no, you're working, brother, you need to focus on work. It's gonna be something I will only figure out tomorrow, and you might hear me talk about it in another video then, but I am not certain because I won't have time to record tomorrow, and I won't have time to record for a couple of days after that as well. Had a bunch of fun today recording the video in Shire Scopes. Was definitely quite a unique game. Maybe not necessarily a unique game, but a unique game for me because I very, very rarely actually indulge in first-person shooters. Not looking for the frenzied bunnies anymore, but it was fun. It was fun. I was not too insanely bad at it, but I was not good at it either for sure. Would require quite a lot of practice for me to actually do something in that game that is respectable. We are about to get our second revive popped if you're not going to be a little bit more careful. I'm definitely going to try and be a little bit more careful, as I say, as I literally dash into the flamethrower. Let me get rid of this tower over here, so that I can at least have a little bit more room and mental capacities and mental space to dodge, but all in all, it's looking quite grim all of a sudden. I know I shifted from positivity into negativity or pessimism quite quickly, but I mean, look at our health bar. What other options do I have than to be a little bit pessimistic? I think we need to stop, and this is a controversial statement that is actually not controversial at all, but I just said that to gather your attention. We need to stop looking at where we are shooting, and we need to start looking at where we are placing our camera. And then additionally, we need to start just looking at the ground beneath us. Look at the ground beneath us and realize that that is the most important thing to focus on in this game. Because we just need to dodge. there goes our second revive. To dodge, I will need a bit more movement speed. So I'm glad that the upgrade got presented to me. But all in all, we are just in heaps of trouble. I feel like we have the damage. But right now, with this set of enemies that we are facing against, we cannot get close to the enemies. That's abysmal. That even warrants a restart. I have time to finish this run then and to then go to sleep. But that was literally like just so bad. I guess arcane missiles is not the way to go anymore. And after all, let's head straight back into the run, into another run on the same map, because we are still looking for the materials on this map to the largest extent. We still have the largest drought is I think a better pronunciation in the materials found in this realm. That's why we set foot in it yet again. Let's try to stick to what we know and stick to what worked previously rather, and just go to the frenzied bunnies again. I realized that it might be boring, but as I laid it out at the start of the video already, and as you realized by now, this video, I should have taken Chaos Golem there, is not, and this series, this game and my recording of it is not about the gaming content anymore, right? It's just about my muscles surrounding my mouth area, my lips moving up and down. Probably your tongue helps in speaking as well. I shouldn't even say probably, I'm certain of it. They can all just have a gander, have a blast. Get all of their energy out there before the day ends, because as soon as the day ends, they need to shut up. It's quite hard to fall asleep when she's calling a cab and you're having a smoke and she's taking a drag. It's quite hard to fall asleep when you are additionally also... Let's go for the little chaos build. Talking in your sleep is nothing to worry about. I think it's a symptom. It's not even a symptom. It's just a characteristic that a lot of people deal with. But I do believe that there's something in there of like that it means that your day was still a bit too busy once you were trying to end it. Recently watched an interesting video. I don't know the guy's channel name. I'm sorry, but he does all of these health challenges or new habit challenges, and most of the time he does them together with his wife, his partner in crime. First of all, beautiful stuff, a very nice endeavor to embark upon together, but additionally, just like a very, very cool thing to do. And lately, the last thing I saw them do, or the video I saw, because I don't think it's their most recent video, was them restructuring their getting into bed ritual. The main difference, the main change they introduced was that they introduced a new system where they had to reset every night. And that reset meant that they had to like already clean up the house entirely, reset their clutter, reset their physical state and therefore their mental state to start the next day with a clear mind. Probably should have gone for the area upgrade there, but Poisonous Blood is definitely also going to help us out. Relentless cast frequency for every spell we have is definitely going to be better. And I am still going to be looking out for the Frenzied Bunnies and probably replace our 3 bold spells with the bunnies if we actually find them, we encounter them. And they were very, very happy about the results that that little health challenge did for them. And they have done many of those challenges, so they know the pitfalls of doing those types of challenges. And one of the greatest pitfalls is, of course, being angry with yourself and not showing any self-compassion, the core concept from the ACT school, the Acceptance and Commitment Therapy school. Self-compassion when it fails, when you have certain nights where you do drink caffeine or a beer after 9 p.m. or you do check your screens because you need to see whether you are recording or not to actually make the video, you know? You need to be mild. You need to be mild towards yourself and just accept that the challenge is never going to be perfect. Because if you get all worked up about one missed night, you are immediately gonna lose all of the motivation. And it's something that you learn throughout the challenge, but it's also kind of like a switch you need to flick in your head, I think. It's probably gonna be way harder for people with some perfectionistic characteristics, because they are like, well, no, if I start a challenge, I need to do the challenge to its fullest extent, and failing one night is just failing. It doesn't matter how many nights that is. Something I recognize in one of my patients with ADHD that I was supposed to see tomorrow, but I don't because she got work. But the point I'm trying to make here is that she also often, like very often, is like, I'm trying this, but I don't perfectly achieve it. It's the same with exams. It's the same with like mental health challenges that she does. It's the same with fitness challenges and new hobbies. I don't immediately do it perfectly, and I don't have the capacity to do it perfectly right from the get-go, which is very normal. But for her, it feels like hell. It's not what she wants at all. She needs to immediately feel the achievement, immediately feel the dopamine, and not have that lull period or that dull period, whatever you want to call it, in between of like having to invest a lot but not getting a lot back. It's very recognizable, I think, also for people without ADHD. Because the symptoms of ADHD are, of course, found in a whole lot of people without them having to get the actual formal diagnosis. The label is the word I was actually looking for. Still have a book that I bought a couple of weeks ago about the impact of psychiatric diagnoses on humans. Not necessarily going to be a lot of books written about the impact of a schizophrenic diagnosis on dogs or the anxiety disorders in cats, I think, but you definitely get my point. You get my point. I'm just looking forward to it because it's a topic that interests me quite a lot, because I find it very logical and normal that such a diagnosis actually has a lasting impact, a very large impact on someone, and I want to learn how to deal with that impact, help them deal with that impact, because I don't have to deal with it myself, of course. I'm not the one living with the diagnosis. If I would live with the diagnosis, if I would self-diagnose, maybe a little bit of autism, maybe in the earlier years a little bit of social anxiety. And I think the one thing I can be certain about in the earlier years, but not right now, is internet gaming disorder or gaming addiction, however you want to call it. I think that's kind of something I can be very honest and open about. Sure, sometimes, especially during the last 2 years of my high school career, it was impeding other domains in my life. I was giving up social social gatherings, social sessions, just to stay inside and try to enjoy a little bit of me time on the computer. Then again, it was still time I almost always spent with friends. The worst no-lifing was probably when the Diablo seasons came out, or when I was really into League of Legends still at the start, or when I discovered Path of Exile. That was definitely also a period of extreme no-lifing in my life. No-lifing is such a stigmatizing term, though. It's not that because you game a little bit too often that you have no life. It's not that because you have a passion that you have a disorder. It's not because you game often and you spend some years gaming every single day that it has to be a disorder, and it has to be something that has to be treated or needs to be dealt with, you know? You need to have a balance. That's the most important part, and you need to stay in control. That's whatever happens, happens, but you need to stay in control of your gaming behavior. Otherwise, go see a therapist right now. And come to think of it, I know this very, very well-suited therapist for you. His name is Vincent, and he lives in Leuven, and he actually works in 2 group practices. He's a clinical psychologist, so not really a therapist, but I know that he will be able to help you. I'll give you his number if you just comment, "Help me, I need therapy." That's, I think, a very open, a very clear-cut communication. Everybody in the comment section will know that you're dealing with some shit, and that is awesome. That is awesome that everybody knows about it, because everybody is allowed to know about it, you know? It's nothing to be ashamed of that you're dealing with some shit. Almost every caregiver goes into therapy themselves, and every caregiver should definitely go into therapy themselves. Even if you think like, oh no, I don't need it, just go. The English-speaking nose itch is coming up again. Still have no explanation for that phenomenon. But I do know that it's quite annoying sometimes, because I just want to speak. I just want to speak my shit, you know? Talk my talk. Talk your shit. That's what they say when rappers are going off, hip-hop artists are going off. Talk your talk, Kendrick. That's what a lot of reviewers said when they were hearing him, when they were listening to him telling them that he was smoking on their top 5. Burn them singles, burn them hard drives, burn that shit. When I come, I'm killing everybody that's outside. End of Family Ties, the track together with Baby Keem, his real-life cousin. Track he made his re-entry into the musical world with. The track where he kind of announced like, hey, I've got some new flows coming, be patient, brother. And those new flows were his album Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Definitely one of the best hip-hop albums, one of the best albums full stop I have ever heard. Count Me Out will remain my favorite there. Talented artist Kendrick Lamar, right up there with J. Cole as one of my favorite hip-hop artists for sure, because of their raw lyrical talent and flow switches. For Your Eyes Only can literally like make me tear up on my way to work, even though I have heard it a bunch of times already. Just such an amazing track that displays some of the crookedness of the system, which is something I definitely want to be an advocate for, to relieve that, to relinquish that, just to make it more fair for everybody, man. I have a person of color, a black girl in therapy myself, or in psychological counseling if you want to be correct myself, and racism is definitely a subject rather, that gets talked about quite often, because she has encountered it quite often as well in our country here in Belgium. And I definitely believe her. I don't have a single grain of doubt that she has encountered racism here in this country, because there are some conservative, I'm gonna go all out and say it, pieces of trash, pieces of shit in this country for sure, that just don't realize how hard it must be sometimes to be of a completely different ethnicity, to be of a completely different race. All of the struggles they need to get through, from institutional racism straight into things like, and this is something she told me as well, like, these white girls, my white friends, don't realize how much time and effort actually goes into my hair, and how I need to travel to Brussels, all the way to Brussels, to get the specific products that I need for my curly hair, you know? They don't understand the struggles I go through, just because of my skin color, just because of my genes, just because of how I was born. It's a very inspiring therapy trajectory for me, because it's also about her fear of failure, her fear of failure in her education as a child educator. Inspiring woman. A lot of inspiring clients. I think every client that is seated in front of me has an inspiring aspect. And I think if you can get inspired by every human being, that the job of being a therapist or a psychologist is maybe a little bit harder for you. It might just be my personal opinion, and I might just be talking shit right now. I'm not sure about it at all, but I do believe that it's at least how I look at things. And my perspective is what you're gonna get in this video, you know? I'm not interviewing anybody, I'm not on a podcast with someone, I'm just spitting my own shit without worrying about how you guys perceive it. I want to get it out of me, I don't want to get it inside of you. Pull out game immaculate. That's so fucked up. I've been getting quite a lot of success on the YouTube front lately, you know. Gathered like 10 new subscribers in the last 4 days or something. All because making a video about a book that one of my professors, while I was still studying to become a clinical psychologist, wrote. And not just to gain clout, or not just because I hoped that they would share it, but because it was an amazing book and I wanted to share the material inside the book with other people. It's my behind the scenes of psychotherapy video, if you want to keep on watching that, or if you want to go watch that rather. And I had the balls to actually network, to send a mail to that professor, to the author, like, hey, I read your book, I made a video about it, it was inspiring, thank you so much for writing it, and I hope you enjoy the fact that you are still inspiring people with it to this day. And he asked me, like, he sent a very, very kind response, and he asked me, like, hey, is it okay if I share this on LinkedIn? And I was like, man, is that okay? That would be absolutely awesome. And so we did. And then I also shared it with my colleagues because I was a bit less afraid, because I didn't have to immediately like share my video on itself, but I could share the LinkedIn post, and they were like impressed that I was making a name for myself. Another one of my professors, of whom I made the entire series on his book about worrying, also hit me up like, hey, good job on the videos. It's a very, very nice part of this hobby, of this passion, the recognition that I get. It's not the main driving factor, and I keep saying that about everything. I say that about motivating factors. I always say, like, it's not this, it's not just this, it's not only that. Come to think of it, there is no one single motivational factor that keeps people going in their passions, right? It's almost always a complex combination of different things, and it's exactly the same for my YouTube journey. It's all those things at once. There we go, a nice victory. That's more like it, that's more what we're looking for. Well, I guess we did gain 1 level from our poor attempt last run, and then only 2 more right now. Quite a lot of runs to do, unless if I do like one off-camera run where I actually go into the overtime, into the extra additional endless modes, which is definitely something that I can do, but other than that, we're almost there. 161, and then we will have 2 117s, and we can move on to the Houndmaster with the new weapon. And the new weapon is Houndmaster Dragonfire Scattergun. Already looking forward to it. Thank you very much for watching and listening to me. I don't know if you noticed this video, but right before seeing it, I saw a video about how to communicate more clearly and to replace us and so's and with silence. I try to employ it, I try to imply it, I try to use it in this video, and I hope it made my communication a bit clearer. Thanks a lot, have a nice day, bye bye.